Check 1 2, check 1 2. This is Derek Bros of the Conscious Resistance Network. If you can hear me, let me know. Give me a thumbs up. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing this out on some of my pages, and we can get started. Today we're going to be focusing on a particular topic, just one main topic. I'll list a couple other news stories. We do this every Friday afternoon, whenever I feel like it. I try to do it around 5:30, but generally whenever I feel like getting on this thing and talking to you guys. So today the topic is going to be the surveillance state, this episode of the Conscious Resistance Live, which I think is like number 67 now, 67 episodes over 3 years or so. Yes, you are living in a surveillance state. So I'm going to focus on journalism that I've been doing recently, stories that highlight how we are, in fact, in the United States and really much of the sort of modern world that has digital technology, computer technology. You are likely living in a surveillance state. And I believe next week I'll probably focus on the police state aspect. So today isn't going to focus on the police militarization or any of those type of things, just specifically surveillance technology. And we'll go over exactly what that means as we get into the show. So first, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Hey, Derek, nice to see you. Okay, I'm assuming you guys can hear me. Go ahead and share this wherever you can, on your page, on your friend's page, on your any groups you're part of, any pages that you admin, if you don't mind. And also let us know where you're listening from. I'm here in Houston, Texas, as usual. And wherever you're listening from, let people know. And we'll get started. Today, as I said, we're going to focus on the surveillance state. I'm going to throw out a couple of different links that I think you should know. And I'm excited also because today is 2 weeks from the release of my book, Manifest of the Free Humans, which some of you may not know anything about. I'll be putting up a page on the website this coming week that will explain all about it. But the book, Manifesto of the Free Humans, is the third book in the Conscious Resistance trilogy with John Vibes and myself. That looks at the intersection of anarchism and spirituality, and also looks to create and propose certain solutions that we can use in the real world today to get away from the statist paradigm and towards a more sustainable world, a world that reflects the values of the people as we live today. So yeah, if you're interested in that, and the thing about it, what I'm excited about this book is we explore history and philosophy and talk about the history of anarchism and freedom movements, but we're also trying to show tangible examples of what you can do in your life. So we study the history of different movements that have tried to create intentional communities and free communities. The early individualist American anarchists, for example, many people who were involved in the creation of these communities, trying to create communities that represented the people that they felt like would benefit their lives. So this could be religious communities, this could be people who were based on the free love movements at the time, Enlightenment movements, essentially trying to break free of the paradigm that existed at that time. Some of these people homesteaded, they created their communities from the ground up. Many of them failed, a lot of them failed. Others were swallowed up by the state as we know it today. So I take a lot of knowledge from what they did in the past. Some of these communities, including the ones by Josiah Warren, that were able to exist without police and without court systems and without jails. It's really amazing. So a lot of that information is going to be in Manifesto of the Free Humans. If you just search Manifesto of the Free Humans, you can find that information. And I'm posting the link now to the other two of my books. As I said, this is the trilogy. theconsciousresistance.com/books is where you can find the rest of the books. And as well, I'm going to be going on tour this summer, myself and other folks at the Freethinker House. I know some of you, since we share out to activist posts, we share this out through the Mind Unleashed and through Wake Up News. Some of you might not be aware of who I am in my work, but I can't really catch everybody up every single show. So if you want to know more about me, you can find me, Derek Bros, on Facebook, or follow the Conscious Resistance Network. Go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Conscious Resistance. And shout out to Wake Up News, to the Mind Unleashed, activist post, and everybody else who supports us. As I said earlier, this is a Friday weekly show where I try to get people to be more aware of what's going on in the world and pay attention to what's happening around us. The stories I'm going to cover today will deal with a specific issue of the surveillance state, as I mentioned, and we're going to go over a couple different examples. I'm going to try not to get too long-winded today and only talk for about 30 minutes. And hopefully by the end of this, convince you that you are living indeed in a surveillance state, and maybe others around you can start to you start to pay attention and do something about it. And I actually asked the question earlier on Facebook, basically saying, I really believe in have faith in the conscious evolution of the human species and our ability to move forward and to create a better world. But at the same time, I'm worried, I have fear about technology. Technology is simply a tool, right? It's a tool that can be used like any tool for good or for bad. But technology in the hands of the state and corporations has been time and time again used to survey, to monitor, to control the people, and to erode the concept of privacy. The police today, the governments today, have tools that totalitarians in the past could only have dreamed of. They only had the radio to propagandize people. From 1984, Winston talks about having telescreens in the room, and you never knew if they were listening to you all the time or if they were watching you. And this is the same thing that we have going on today in the United States and in other places around the world. So that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to go through about 5 articles that look at different aspects of the surveillance state and paint a picture, a clear picture that should make it obvious that we are indeed dealing with a police state. Once again, my name is Derek Brose. You're listening to the Conscious Resistance Live. You can find my work at activistpost.com, theantimedia.org, as well as mintpressnews.com. I write for all of those sites, and I have a radio show on Mondays on 90.1 KPFT here in Houston. So now that we got all that out of the way, I'm going to throw a couple links towards you guys. The sites that I just mentioned, those are the sites that I follow and that I write for and that I trust. Activistpost.com, theantimedia.org, mintpressnews.com, the Free Thought Project right here. These are sites that I trust, and I think you can go ahead and trust. And of course, with anything, always use your own mind, your own thoughts and opinions, and try to get to the truth. First quick story. Today, the Keystone XL pipeline was officially approved by the Trump administration. Just going to drop that link in there. These ones I'm just running through. I think you guys can see for yourself and make your own mind up. This one is important as well. A new report from Reuters showed that there's lead poisoning in children in California 3 times higher than what has been found in the city of Flint, Michigan. So if you thought Flint was bad, you need to look at these numbers on what's happening with lead poisoning in California. Very important. Also, the anti-media highlights, there's several different stories dealing with what's happening internationally. The U.S. earlier this week launching an airstrike that killed 33 civilians as they bombed a school in Syria accidentally. They claim, of course, this is just the consequence of war. This is the consequence of supporting politicians who are going to continue the paradigm. They're not going to be any different than the Obamas or the Bush or the Clintons or the Bushes. Trump, like all presidents, is just going to continue the imperialist agenda. There may be some superficial changes here and there, but at the end of the day, the game continues. Because as somebody mentioned earlier, you have institutions like secret societies, non-governmental organizations, other institutions that wield power outside of government. So you have to take a look at that. Otherwise, you're just striking at the branches and not actually striking the root of your problem. Now, another story related to that, we have this one here. U.S. airstrike kills 230 civilians in Mosul. This is just yesterday as well. So this is a different city. And now the airstrike is, the toll is going higher and higher. A single U.S. airstrike against a large building full of civilians in Mosul killed over 130 people, while the other 100 or so were killed in the surrounding area. Central Command said they were aware of the loss of life and were carrying out further investigation while insisting that all of their strikes overnight comply with the law of armed conflict. So they're saying it's legal what we're doing. Yes, human lives are dying in the pursuit of our imperialism and our conquest, but we're protected. And, at the end of the day, this really helps you understand the futility of following these people's laws, the state's laws. Because what is the law but simply one person's or a collection of people, a gang of people, which is what government is. They're a gang of people who take over a geographic landmass and enforce their views, their monopoly on law and order. What they say is legal, what they say is just. You can't smoke this plant. You can't parent your kids this way. You can't, use health medicine this way. You can't do this without our approval, without our licenses, without our regulations, without us saying so, giving permission. Like a parent figure, this is the authoritarian mindset that they believe that you are their children and that you should worship them and listen to what they have to say. And if not, then you are a failed person. You're not a good citizen. You're not an upstanding person. All these kind of BS things that they propagate into your mind through their education systems as well. So we can see the reasons we need to push past that and free the children from the state's grasp. This other one here is also coming from the anti-media, and it's a reblogging of an article, an op-ed from the Fifth Column, which I also recommend. The Fifth Column, Justin King and the team over there do great work. Moderate Americans refuse to condemn terror attacks. And this is just like what it sounds, is moderate Americans. And maybe it's Trump supporters who were talking all this mess whenever Obama was dropping bombs. Now they're just like, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to keep quiet. You know, everybody turns their Facebook profile the color of France when there's a shooting, or the color of Belgium when there's a shooting. And those things are horrible. But what happens when 130 civilians are drone bombed by the U.S. government, or 33 civilians in a school are drone bombed? Nobody changes their profile to the Syrian flag and says, oh, can we raise awareness about the loss of life there? No, because we're a part of the empire, at least here in the United States. This empire right here thinks, and the people who are behind it think that they run everything. And the truth is, they don't run shit except for what we allow them to. Ultimately, we run and rule our own lives, and that is the truth of it, whether we like it or not. It's the truth. We don't have to accept it. We don't have to take responsibility. But the moment you realize that you are in control and you are responsible for yourself, then you are faced with a choice. Do I want to take responsibility for my own life? Do I want to take responsibility for the state that the world is in? Because the truth is that we are all basically contributing to our own enslavement in certain ways. We have to evaluate our lives and figure out how we are contributing to our enslavement. Do we not like Monsanto and pesticides and these unsustainable food production distribution systems? Well, then don't buy their products. Stop supporting the big chain grocery stores. Support local markets and backyard gardens and community gardens. If you don't like the state, stop giving them your money through taxation. Find ways to work in the black and gray counter economy and take their economic power away. I mean, this is what we really have to do if we're ever going to affect change, is stop supporting their systems through our passivity and our compliance. You know, I think that we are assisting and aiding and abetting violent criminal people every time we play their game. You know, when we choose to say, you know what, I'm just going to live my life in a way that, you know, it creates the least resistance, right? I'll try to avoid this system whenever possible, which is highly recommended. But through your avoidance, you're not actually taking action. You're not actually confronting the mechanisms of power that exist. And I don't mean confronting in the form of violence, guns, and things like that, although defending yourself is a great idea. I mean in the sense that we are confronting the ways we contribute to our own enslavement, and then deciding, you know what, my convenience, my complacency is not worth the destruction of future generations. So let me break that down further. What I mean to say is, you can live your life in a way that you just make some concessions, and you go out to eat, and you go out places where they're using part of this unsustainable food distribution systems, or you go and you pay taxes here and there because you're like, well, you know, I don't really want to make the extra effort to invest in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. I don't want to make the extra effort to see if I can get paid in cash. I'll just keep playing the game the way it's done, right? And by playing the game the way it's done, and then getting online and sharing your memes and posting all this information and feeling like, yeah, I'm really sticking it to the system. No, you're not. No, we're not. We're all guilty of it in one way or the other. We are serving their systems. We're still not breaking outside of it. That is what I'm focused on through the philosophy of agorism, AGORISM, the New Libertarian Manifesto. Look that up. You can download it for free. And in my book, my new book, Manifesto of the Free Humans, which is going to explore this even further and show how we can build free communities based on this. So that's my little rant. If we want to create free communities, got to free our minds, our hearts, and then we create empowered communities around us, come together, build a network, freedomcells.org, build freedom cells, freedom cell network, and create a system that can compete with what we have now. So we don't try to vote them out. We don't try to violently overthrow them. We prepare to defend ourselves at all costs, but we build new food production systems. We localize. We build new currencies that aren't fractional reserve central bank currencies. We build systems that are voluntary mutual aid, not forced taxation, involuntary taxation. That's what we do. So I believe in this, and I'll download anything produced by you for free. All my books are available for free. theconsciousresistance.com/books. theconsciousresistance.com/books. My books are available there. There's the Reflections on Anarchy and Spirituality and Finding Freedom in an Age of Confusion. You can download both of them for free. You can purchase them on Amazon. The new one comes out in 2 weeks at the Free Your Mind conference in Philly, and you will also be able to download that one for free. And I really think that's going to be a hands-on. I'm not just trying to sell you my book. That's why I'm giving them away for free. So don't think, oh, this guy just wants me to buy his book. No, it's a for free thing, because I need you to read it. I need us to get out there and spread these ideas, spread them like wildfire. We need to build free communities. We're planning on launching an intentional community somewhere, probably in Texas, in 2020, and starting to build this network of self-sustaining, conscious, aware, self-aware, independently aware, relational, holistic communities that are concerned with the way they grow their food, the way that they interact, nonviolent communication, peaceful parenting, unschooling, growing your own food, living like a free, beautiful, awesome human being that you are. That's what we're trying to do. So as we pursue that reality, though, and we go towards making that dream come true, we have to face another reality that exists at the same time as all these beautiful things that are happening. And that is the fact that the state and governments around the world have been erecting a surveillance state. And not just in the age of Obama, the past 8-9 years, but that a lot of this freedom movement has come about because of the internet. Many of us, I'm 32, so we're all, I think there's like a range of people who watch these shows. There's millennials and there's baby boomers. If you grew up before the 80s, you witnessed life before the computers, right? Now there's many people now growing up who've never seen a life without social media, without computers in their hand from birth. I remember what it was like when I was in junior high and computers were first coming out. But now we have this tool, we have these ways to connect and do amazing things. And technology has given us so much. But at the same time, this technology has the flip side. It is also now watching everything you do. As I sit here and I talk to you through this camera on my phone, this thing is reading my face. It's creating a facial profile of me. And as we're going to get into in one of the stories, this is being fed to this company, which is likely accessed by the CIA, the FBI, or other government agencies that want it. Then they are storing this information when you take your selfies, which, maybe there was a reason the selfie trend spread, so we could put our faces right on their cameras. And they store that information. And so what we're seeing now is technology it's like a race. It's going to free people through the Freedom Cell Network, freedomcells.org, through apps like Nextdoor.com and Cell 411, all these different amazing tools that allow us to connect and decentralize without the need for third parties, without the need for governments or corporations or any other people who are intruding on free people's right to do business together and exchange ideas and currency and love and just be free together. That's the good side. The other side, the flip side, is that these institutions, private institutions and governments and militaries for sure, are investing in and creating surveillance technologies that also can plug in and can study your retinas, can log your face print, can, record everything on the streets. They have all this different technology. What many people know is the Internet of Things. If you've never heard of this phrase, look up the Internet of Things. It's just this idea that all the different electronic devices, like your smart car, your smart vehicle, your smart washer and dryer, your smart dishwasher, all these devices can be interconnected. And it's a beautifully streamlined thing, right? But if any of you have ever seen the movie America, Freedom to Fascism, an old school documentary that some of you who've been around for a bit probably know about it, Aaron Russo, from Freedom to Fascism, they talk about, there's a scene where they kind of mimic what we're seeing now, where there's a guy who he wants to call a pizza place to just order a pizza, right? And when he's ordering the pizza, even the pizza place has access to all his medical records, all his history. And they're like, "Oh, sir, we see that you are, what it is he calls for the insurance. He calls to get new insurance. And the insurance company can see all of his information. And they can see that he ordered a pizza the week before. And they're like, "Oh, you ordered this pizza. Well, that's going to make your rates go up. And we can also see that you're dating this." Just they can see your habits. An interconnected panopticon, digital world where your information, the concept of privacy, has been completely erased. I mean, many of you who are growing up now might not even think that privacy is important. You're like, "Oh, well, I put everything I want. All my life is on Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. I live stream my whole life. It's no big deal. I don't care if people know what I'm doing." But if you understand history and you study history, you know that all totalitarian regimes have always tried to limit the people's privacy. Back in the day, the British wanted to put soldiers quartered into people's houses so they could literally be there in your room and do whatever they wanted, right? And then the Nazis had the ability to come into your house whenever. If they wanted to search, you couldn't say, "No, I have my rights." You didn't have any rights. So all totalitarian regimes realize that privacy leads to planning. If people are against the state in their private conversations, they might be planning protests. They might be planning ways to create a movement, an evolution, not a revolution, but a movement to go past the government. So when you eliminate that and the people realize, hey, I have to watch what I'm saying because my computer might be listening, my phone might be listening, the Echo might be listening, the TV might be listening, the washer and dryer might be listening. I never know when they're listening. So instead of actually organizing, I'm just going to go back into my fear. I'm just going to let things keep happening. That's what they want. They want us to silence because of this. So you have to recognize the importance of freedom and privacy, how they go hand in hand. You really can't have a free world if you don't have privacy. And most of us understand that Privacy doesn't exist in the digital world because of all our cell phones. If you're ever trying to have a private conversation, if just, pro tip, if you're an activist, you better gather everybody's cell phones in that room, all the computers, take them, put them in a box, take them out somewhere else, put them in the garage, and then make sure your TV is taken out of the room, make sure all the devices that can be connected to Wi-Fi or any sort of digital thing are out of the room, covered up, so that you can have a private conversation. That's what you need to do, and we're not even safe if you go into the woods now. So I think I've ranted a little bit now. You understand the situation, why privacy matters. Let's talk about 4 stories, maybe 5 stories that are an example of privacy being taken away and the surveillance state that is being erected in the United States. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll see it's perfectly clear. We are living in a surveillance state. We'll start with the UK, so I'm not just focused on the United States. Whistleblower, I just released this. It's on activistpost.com. It's been posted in the last hour. Whistleblower reveals UK police hacking emails of journalists and activists. And this is an interesting story. The UK Metro Police basically are being accused of collaborating with the Indian police and a group of hackers to illegally access the emails of hundreds of journalists and activists who were organizing in their communities. I'm going to post a link to you guys who are watching live right there. Check that out. So this secret unit within the Metro Police has been partnering with hackers to monitor emails, and this unit is basically hacking and stealing passwords and monitoring people. My information. So let's get into this one more time. I'm going to show you guys what about this story from activistpost.com. Whistleblower reveals UK police hacking emails, journalists, and activists. Basically, as I said, the unit of the Metro Police has been working with Indian police and hackers to access emails of journalists, photographers, and activists, environmental activists, specifically with Greenpeace. Yes, 3rd time's the charm. Thank you guys for hanging out. And this is really nothing new. If you paid attention to the COINTELPRO counterintelligence programs of the 60s and 70s, the FBI and other agencies, we all know that they've been monitoring activists. They've been monitoring, it doesn't really matter what kind of group you're in, if you're a feminist, if you're Black Lives Matter, if you're Black Panthers, if you're the Red Power movement, if you're Standing Rock. It is a possibility that if you oppose the systems that are and you try to go against them, you try to organize, not in any sort of violent way, I don't mean anything like that, but just try to organize a simple, peaceful protest. More than likely, the police have your name on some kind of record somewhere. Anything that is logged in the on the internet. I have records of the Houston police monitoring my activism with the Houston Freethinkers going back to 2010, before we were even doing anything serious, when it was just a handful of us. Sometimes it's still a handful of us. So we have a surveillance state. As I said, next week I'll be talking about the police state. And now that I've got everybody back, our numbers look like they're good again. Once again, my name is Derek Brose. I'm a journalist with Activist Post, Mint Press News, and the Anti-Media. Thanks to everyone who shares these articles. I'm going to post that article I just covered again. And then I wrote this one earlier in the week, theantimedia.org. Raise your hand. Give me a thumbs up or something. Give me a thumbs up if you've ever heard of national security letters. Give me a sad face if you never have, because it's sad that you haven't heard, but it's not surprising because many people don't know about them. They're one of many tools that the federal government has under their tool belt, which allows them to monitor people and really access your information in secret. So I got a thumbs up. Some of you, yeah, sad face. We got a mix here. Some of you, that link right there I just posted, that's the link to the article I'm talking about if you want to go over it with me. So, do national security letters violate the First Amendment? The question is at the heart of an ongoing court battle between the FBI and 2 communications service providers represented by the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the EFF. EFF is representing Credo Mobile and Cloudflare in their efforts to defend themselves against the use of controversial national security letters, or NSLs. Both companies are legally bound to secrecy for years under the provisions of the NSL, itself a creation of the infamous Patriot Act of 2001, which, as you guys know, was rushed through Congress after the 9/11 attacks, and it really was just a way for the federal government to grab power, and they've continued to use that power to monitor the people, including like these national security letters. Kevin, Paul, barber's haircut. I don't know why it's funny when people say things like get a haircut. I think that maybe my hair offends them, but I don't cut my hair, I'm sorry. And I do have a job, so some of us just like our hair long. NSL's national security letters are a tool used by the U.S. government to force telecommunication companies to give customer information without the use of a warrant from a judge. So think about this. The FBI draws up a document that they call the national security letter, and then they come to a company, say your AT&T, your Cloudflare, your Credo Mobile, your Cricket, whatever, and they say, hey, we need information on this person. This is a national security letter. And the company is then legally bound to secrecy. They can't tell anybody that they've been approached about this. They can't tell the customer. And if they try to get help, the lawyer that they tell is also then bound to secrecy. So even when they try to pursue these cases in court and say, hey, it's unconstitutional what they're doing, the companies and the EFF, they can't even say who their defendant is. So the EFF has been saying for the past couple of years, we are defending an anonymous telecommunications company. We can't tell you their name because legally we're bound to secrecy. So the information that they often seek includes customer names, addresses, phone and internet records, banking, credit statements, and the most contentious part of the tool is, of course, the gag order. So some companies have been gagged for 5+ years. They're fighting a legal battle in secret. They can't tell their customers, hey, the FBI may be accessing your information, but if they were to do something about it, they would then be violating the law. It's just this really backwards way of thinking. Thankfully, though, in 2013, U.S. District Judge Susan Ilston in San Francisco, she found that the national security letters violate the First Amendment of the recipients by removing their ability to speak about their letters. So she's saying, like, it's basically violating free speech. That's now being challenged in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit in San Francisco. So the Electronic Frontier Foundation is basically asking the court to confirm what the lower court found, that NSLs are illegal. And the EFF has previously shown that 300,000 national security letters have been issued in the past 10 years. And former President Obama's own intelligence review group stated that 60 national security letters are issued every single day, or during his presidency. There may be more. We found out in 2016 that Yahoo has been fighting 3 national security letters. So it's something that there may be more and more. Obviously, if they're saying they're issuing 60 of these a day, there are a lot of companies that are being told, hey, you can't tell anybody, but we're going to go through all your customers' information. And they may be fighting these cases. Some of them are choosing not to fight it. Maybe they feel like there's no way to fight it. Maybe they're compliant. Either way, it's a pretty dangerous situation. So this next one is the facial software. FBI has gathered millions of face prints for biometric database for years, and this is brand new. As of Wednesday, there was a committee hearing, the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, and several representatives were questioning Kimberly Del Greco, the Deputy Assistant Director at the FBI's Criminal Justice Information Services Division. A lot of bureaucracies here. Basically, she works for the FBI. That's all you really need to know. She's the representative that they sent out to get yelled at. And what we found out, this is pretty big. I know right now all the news media is talking about Donald Trump and the health care bill. And of course, the health care bill is important to some degree, right? There may be some people who are depending on the health care bill. But what is really missing from that debate, just as an aside here, is that the government shouldn't be involved in any of that. If the people want to come up with their own forms of health care, they should be able to do that. You should never be forced to buy anything by any government. That's just a bunch of BS. That's what they're not talking about. Instead, they're just trying to figure out how they can change it. It's just more statism. No matter what, it's government involvement. No matter what, it's them in your lives. It's not anything that's going to lead to more health and more lasting freedom. But while they're worried about that and they're talking all about Russia or Trump or this and that, you've got admitted in the congressional record now, in this House committee, that the FBI has been breaking the law for several years, and they've been collecting millions of Americans' faces. They call them face prints, like your fingerprint, faces for their new biometric identification system. Biometrics includes iris scans, fingerprints, face prints, and other facial recognition features, like when your phone's scanning your face when you're taking pictures. The Next Generation Identification System, as the FBI's database is known, organizes Americans' biometric data into a single file that includes personal and biographic data like name, home address, ID, immigration status, age, race, etc. So like I was saying earlier, they're going to have this one single file that will have your whole health history, your credit history, where you live, everything about you. It'll have your fingerprint, your face print, anything that they need to know, all about your tattoos, your eye scans, so they can catalog you everywhere you go. And this should be headline news right now in the United States. the committee reported that nearly half of all adult Americans' photographs are in this database. So this means that in 2013, the U.S. Census Bureau said that there were 242 million living adults in the U.S. and adults living in the U.S. And if those numbers are correct, if we go by those numbers, that means there are over 121 million adults already in the FBI's database. They also said that 18 states have a memorandum of understanding with the FBI to share photos with the federal government in secrecy, including from the state departments of motor vehicles, the DMV, those different institutions that you go to get your license from. They're already sharing your pictures with the federal government, and they've been doing so in secret for several years. So what was interesting is the committee chairman, Congressman Jason Chaffetz, I think is how you say it, he was scolding the FBI representative, asking her why they waited for years. He says, the failure here is years after you were supposed to make it public. You were using it in real-world circumstances. You were actually using it, and you didn't issue the statement. And he asked her, are you collecting information that is available on social media? She claimed that they don't have those photos, but that claim was challenged by several people who were also there questioning her, saying that the FBI does indeed have access to tons of civilian photographs through social media and through other means and through driver's license photos. And this is interesting because it's very rare that you'll actually hear somebody in mainstream politics call attention to the fact that we are living in a surveillance state, a police state. Representative John Duncan, a Republican from Tennessee, said that he fears that the possibility of the expectation of privacy is quickly fading. He worried that Americans looking at the information would, quote, wonder if we were ending up in a federal police state that's gotten totally out of control and has far too much power. I mean, he pretty much called it as it is. These databases also, now for those of you who are saying, well, they're probably just going after terrorists or bad people, who've committed crimes. But it's already been shown that the database includes people who've never been arrested, who have no criminal activity, no criminal history, and they can get those images, of course, from your driver's license, your passport, and your visa photos. So they're just plugging all this stuff into a massive database. And it's also been shown that the database has trouble. It's been shown to have trouble identifying females and blacks at a higher rate. So misidentification. So maybe it sees one face and then it gets it wrong, and then it sends the police after the wrong person. And what if the police, attack that person or end up killing that person? It seems like they have a higher rate of mistake with females and blacks, according to this study here. The FBI is also being sued by the the Electronic Privacy Information Center for the database, and that's an ongoing lawsuit. The FBI has over 100 million photographs in their thing, 100 million people's faces in it. You can see that in that article at activistpost.com. So yeah, that's a growing database. It's a huge problem. One more positive story before I close out. New York Supreme Court last week, though, they signaled support for transparency on cell phone surveillance. Just a real quick one. I've talked about and reported on Stingray cell phone surveillance. Look up Stingray cell phone surveillance. You can look up my name, Derek Bros, and Stingrays, and you'll find plenty of stories. But they're just a device that allows the police to gather your text messages, your images, and the contents of your phone by pretending to be a cell phone tower. So there's actually been some bills in the United States, in Arizona, New Hampshire, and other places that are trying to push back. New York Supreme Court is now signaling that they might actually force the police to release documents to show how these devices work, because the police sign non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, with the company, the Harris Corporation, that is based out of Florida, that makes the Stingray cell phone devices, and the FBI. So they're forced to sign non-disclosure agreements so that they can't talk about how the devices work. The only way we know how Stingrays work is because some whistleblowers have leaked documents, leaked the manuals, and there's been reporters and journalists filing open records requests like myself. So you have all these different devices coming out, and as I said earlier, this is a double-edged sword. This is the world we see, that digital technology is allowing me to stream this from my room right now and show you guys all these stories, and to broadcast to people around the world, and then to share that message to whoever hears it. So it's an amazing thing. It's really powerful. But as I said, right now they're looking at my face, they're taking this picture, and they're storing it on their database. So there are two sides to every coin. I just want to mention this last story here that kind of paints a picture. It's from The Intercept, theintercept.com. Glenn Greenwald, check out their website if you don't know them. And it says, real-time face recognition threatens to turn cops' body cameras into surveillance machines. Now, I've said for a long time, if you search my name, maybe I can find it. I wrote this article probably more than a year ago called The Body Camera Deception. And it was basically saying that after we saw all the wave of anti-police brutality protests happening around the country, many people were were worried about how are we going to stop police violence. And the answer that was put forth by the Obama administration and by plenty of people was that we needed to put body cameras on all the cops. I'm posting that link right there. It's from February 2016, so about a year ago. It's called "Don't Fall for the Police Body Camera Deception." And so people are saying this is the solution. We need to put body cameras on all cops, even though there's very little evidence that the body cameras actually change the situation. Often they seem to just turn off, or the cops have the ability to turn them off, or they're just not reliable. And there's a lot of questions about whether or not it actually deters the police's violent behavior. But what I was posing at the time is what we're really creating is a situation where all the cops are literally walking around with cameras recording not just their interactions with people, but everything that takes place around them. And now what this story talks about here is that police are starting to make contracts, sign contracts with companies that can do real-time facial recognition. So think about that. Police are going to be walking around in the near future with body cameras that have facial recognition software inside of them. So if you have a warrant out for a traffic ticket, say you're an illegal immigrant, illegal human, whatever, if just in general, maybe you've got a criminal, maybe you got arrested for pot back in the day, right? But you're walking around, the police got this real-time facial recognition software device, and maybe they've got some heads-up display, some what is known as augmented reality, and it says, oh, suspect to the left has a cannabis history, and then they decide to stop and question you. Or, oh, there's a person over there with the warrant, go get them. So maybe it's a helpful tool for the police, and some people say, well, this is going to make the streets safer. No, it's going to create a police surveillance state where you have to be afraid every single place you go. And this is the reality that we're headed. There's going to be, we've got CC closed-circuit TVs everywhere. We've got 24-hour stations that are operated by local police sharing information with the federal government. We've got drones overhead. We've got secret surveillance planes. That's one story I didn't cover. That's going on by the CIA and the FBI. It's not a conspiracy. Stingray cell phone surveillance. We've got them hiring hackers to get into activist emails. So they're in your email, they're in your cell phone, they're in your house with the Amazon Echo. They have devices that allow them to see through walls into people's house that they said they can see you breathing from up to 500 feet away. They're listening through the audio recording devices. They've got cameras all around the places that all connect to each other. And this is going to be literally from you're in your room. If they want to hear what you have to say, they just turn on your microphone on your computer or on your cell phone. And then when you walk outside, they just turn on one of the audio recording devices or one of the cameras on the street. And then when you get in your car, they turn on your OnStar thing to listen to you. And then when you get to you see the picture I'm painting? Everywhere you go, they will be watching you. And the police then will have this direct ability to just turn it into a giant surveillance state. So this is what I want to show with you right here. It says at least 5 U.S. police departments, including those in Los Angeles and New York, have already purchased or looked into purchasing real-time facial recognition for their CCTV cameras. And it looks like 6,000 of the country's 18,000 police agencies estimated to buy body cameras. If they get facial recognition, that's going to translate to literally hundreds of thousands of new mobile surveillance cameras walking around everywhere for the police to tune in. So, I mean, this is just the reality. I'm going to post this article. I definitely want you guys to look into this more. This article from The Intercept does a great job of painting the picture. But, as I said, we did 3 videos tonight trying to stay live. Thanks for everybody who hung out. And this episode of the Conscious Resistance Live is called Yes, You Are Living in a Surveillance State. And I think it's true. I think it's true that we're living in a surveillance state. And I posted earlier on Facebook this message just asking the question, what do we do? How can we combat this reality that is taking place? With the awareness that I do think humanity is evolving. We're moving to a space where we're going to create a better world. But we're also in a race with technology that is looking to limit us, to confine us, to control us in many, many ways. We have all these tools keeping us afraid to speak openly. I think it's time for all the rebels who understand what's going on to speak up openly. Don't be deterred. Don't allow their surveillance state, their police state, to keep you from speaking up. If we do that, then if we silence ourselves, they're going to win. They continue to try to march forward towards a surveillance state, but it's up to each and every free heart and mind to stand up, to assert themselves. Support encryption, support encrypted applications. If you really want privacy, get your cell phones out of the room, get your computers out of the room, get the Echo out of the room, go somewhere where you can have that, and boycott these devices in some ways. We can't give our privacy up for comfort, for luxury, for entertainment. I mean, we have a choice. We can do that. We can choose to march towards this world that lacks privacy, and without privacy, we will not have freedom. Or we can choose to take steps, as I said in the beginning of the show, to limit yourself, limit the ways that you are contributing to your own slavery. And through that, we can create a better world. So, what are we going to do? That's what I want to leave you guys with. Think about ways that you can find a way to be more free while also using technology to create a better world. We can use technology, but we have to be aware of the pitfalls and the downfalls of the technology. Once again, my name is Derek Brose with theconsciousresistance.com, the Conscious Resistance Network. You can find my books on theconsciousresistance.com/books. I'll post those in just a moment. Going on tour this summer with my team and the Houston Freethinkers. We're going to be spreading the message. If you enjoy the message I've been putting out and the ideas that I'm putting out, I think you'll like my book that comes out in 2 weeks at the Free Your Mind Conference in Philadelphia. If you want to follow my journalism, follow Activist Post, follow the Anti-Media, follow Mint Press News. Shout out to the Mind Unleashed for always supporting me. And if you live in Houston, you want to get involved, come find me. Let's do some good work together. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate your time and patience.